How can lawyers argue without crying? Lawyer sobbing, Your Honor, I object. Judge also sobbing, Why are you yelling at me? Question mark, exclamation mark. Bailiff, if you two don't stop this racket, I'm canceling milk and cookie time. They ran out of tears after going through law school, because they've done the process so many times that they're desensitized to it. Kind of like how retail workers lose all interest in pop music because they have to hear it 24/7 at work until their ears bleed. And Christmas music that ends Black fucking Friday and lasts till New Year's Day. They use a blow dryer before each chord appearance. If they do end up crying, it will just bring the eyes back to their normal moistness instead of overflowing their sockets. It's not personal for the monsieur. They are trained. My brother is a lawyer and he's told me he gets really close to crying sometimes. They cry later. It makes them look unprofessional if they do it in front of people, because they're objective to the matter at hand, not personally involved. They're trained not to raise emotional issues not relevant and will be inadmissible. I can assure you there's tears when hearing the story from the client, and judges are often tortured by the decisions they have to make. I'm the fly on the wall. They're acting. We hold it together in the actual courtroom. Cry as soon as we get to the hallway, bathroom stall, car, office, whatever. Also, TBH, I think that most people who choose to become lawyers are somewhat emotionally effed up in one way or another. It takes a little bit of a crazy person to sign up for this. I don't generally have to worry about crying because I can't cry even when I want to. Got too good at burying all of my emotions due to some trauma long before I chose to become a lawyer. How long have you been in the game? If a lawyer did cry, I'd probably believe that one. Judge. The defense's lawyer is obviously crying tears of genuine and sincere outrage. The jury preemptively finds his client not guilty. Right. The same way boxers can punch each other without crying. Or without bleeding. Oh wait, because they don't really believe what they're saying and they don't really give a damn. They're just acting. Source. Retired lawyer. Out tears get sucked right out of our eyes during law school. I know this as I'm being drained right now. NGL, this got my crying tears of joy. Hi, I work for lawyers. It takes a certain level of emotional detachment to be an effective lawyer, as emotion-based actions and arguments are just gonna lose cases. But we've had a case of a nursing home essentially doing nothing about a resident falling in, breaking her hip except throwing her bodily back into the bed. Let me tell you, it was hard for my boss to deal with that. They have no souls. Lies, bitch, my mom's a lawyer. That sounds like a manga series. Well, his name is Dragon Slayer. They wipe their tears with the cash. Trust me, we don't. Lawyers in my sector in the UK, legal aid work is really not paid well. My friends who didn't go to uni and just worked since leaving school are on more than me. I know, just a joke. I work in a legal office and my boss is dirt poor. You hire a lawyer to be your advocate, not to cry on your shoulder. Why would we want to cry? It's their job to make statements and get the jury or judge invested in their side of the case. It's nothing personal at all, because lawyers literally are arguing with facts and information, most of the time. When you study the law's stance on things and you are obligated to pursue the client's claim, as long as it's within reason, then you kinda get used to it. Also, the atmosphere in court makes it difficult to just cry. It's very formal and strict. I might be wrong though, since I am still a law student and not a real lawyer yet. XD. They got their eyes on the money. What is wrong with you? Sleepy? I have a lot of feelings. I'm pretty sure most people in general don't have to cry while arguing. And those are issues personal to them they're arguing about. A lawyer isn't even defending issues important to them. It's someone else's situation, and if they lose, it's very little personal consequence to the monsieur. YTF would they cry about it? I genuinely don't think I even understand the reasoning in your question. Wasn't meant to be that deep. It was more for the sensitive people out there winking face. I'm one of those people who cry easy when someone's yelling. Legal arguments are like debate club. Nobody's yelling. They're taking turns trying to convince the judge or jury by sounding convincing. Crying really doesn't enter into it, and most cases are really boring. Seriously, go sit in a local courtroom for 4 hours without your phone. I dare you to try without falling asleep or losing your mind. I have. I was defending myself, smiley face. Succeeded too. Dunno about the US, but there is no yelling in court. You'd look like a jackass doing that. It's a back and forth, regulated by procedural law. Also, people, including lawyers and judges, can be empathetic without crying, because they do it as a living and they're not sensitive. It's not hard. Same reason how doctors and nurses deal with death on a daily basis. They get used to it. I'm a doctor and I had my fair share of crying in bathroom stalls. You get desensitized a bit but never truly used to it. Or maybe I'm just too sensitive. They just think about their paycheck. They cry when they get home. They cry all the way to bank $dollar instead. The second they start yelling, it's over. Tears start flowing, because I enjoy it. It's like playing a game. There are defined rules and you can win, lose, draw. Just like any actor or performer, they don't really care. By being more emotionally mature than a toddler. For us it's just a job, something you do over and over. Because they don't have a dog in that fight. You have to emotionally disconnect from any job to be able to do your job. Back when I was a lawyer, I was much more concerned with doing a good job than anything else. You're not focused on how sad it is. You're focused on how well you're presenting that sadness to a jury. Totally different mindset. If you argue often enough, you stop crying. I'm not a lawyer yet, and hopefully I will be. But to be honest, I don't cry in my trainings because I don't want to show weakness to the vultures preying on me. If I argue for something, then I argue because I think it's right and I don't want to lose. However, I'll be an emotional wreck as soon as I arrive home. Also, depending on who I'm arguing with, I sometimes like it. I'm a lawyer working in free assistance for people who can't otherwise afford a lawyer, and often facing very serious legal and non-legal issues. I also consider myself to be a highly emotional person. I've never cried during a court case or negotiating, but have certainly had a meltdown or two. Once back at the office, haha. I find that my brain goes into autopilot. Kind of like my brain turns off and my lawyer brain turns on. If you asked me what goes through my head during a court hearing, I honestly couldn't tell you. You spend so much time preparing for court that you know everything inside out. And you need to think on your feet and be ready for anything. It becomes about representing the client and presenting the facts and circumstances to present their case. There's definitely an element of detaching from emotions. Although I do believe that you can't fully detach. You are human and you feel emotion. I think part of it for me has been working with such vulnerable clients. It really pushes you to go harder and try harder for them, and it's quite easy to become emotionally invested in their case. Not great to do that, but I'm only human. I remember one incident where a judge disagreed with me on an issue of law interpretation, and when I respectfully pointed out why his interpretation was wrong, he went absolutely ballistic at me and gave me a 15-minute dressing down in front of a room full of my peers. It was awful and I cried back at the office. But I held it together because A, my interpretation was right, B, he made the decision I wanted to be made anyway, and C, it's better for me to get exposed to that rather than my very vulnerable client, who would have otherwise been a self-represented litigant if I wasn't there. And she probably would have lost her case, and her children as the case was. Personally, after a big day in court or negotiating, I go back to the office and just collapse, because I'm so mentally and emotionally exhausted. There's a lot of build-up and preparation for a court day. and then actually spending the day presenting arguments, being grilled by the judge and the opposing party, dealing with the clients, explaining outcomes, sometimes calming clients down afterwards. It leaves me completely shattered. Even after good days, I still go home and cry because I'm so drained. Lawyering is hard. It feels good to cry, smiley face. I worked 3 years in family law. I saw parents use their kids as tools to hurt each other. I saw families fighting for the house of the grandpa that just died even though they had not seen him in decades. I saw bitter divorces where money was more important than the baby. The good cases where rational people solve their issues are not the ones that go to court. At most they go twice to sign the agreement in front of the judge. The daily cases are the shit ones with shitty people, encouraged by unethical lawyers and handled by desensitized public workers. I cried plenty. We just hold it in until later. The kids cry plenty during the arguments though. My fiancée is a defense attorney and amazing at compartmentalizing her feelings. It's harder than it seems. Plead the fifth. Why would lawyers cry when their job is essentially just to argue by making points with facts? Not sure why you're getting downvoted. That's literally what their job is. Lawyers that cry don't stay lawyers. Lawyers that can do their job and argue facts without getting emotionally involved remain lawyers. The kinds of people who'd cry in court aren't the kinds of people who'd make it through law school alive, because 90% of the time, they look at the evidence and know if they're going to win. They don't cry in court because they know they can go home and cry with happiness, alone in their bedroom, about their high salary. They don't cry during arguments at home because they know they can go to work and get paid to argue with people for money. So why would they spend a lot of time arguing at home for free? You try living with a lawyer while they've worked from home for a few months due to COVID and you see if that assessment is short-sighted. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.